Hi, my name is Daphne, and it is beautiful outside once again. We are out here enjoying the wonderfulness of the weather, getting some natural vitamin D into our systems, elevating our moods. This is a beautiful thing. But today I'm actually doing most of the work inside of the house. A lot of the plants have slowly started to grow. Actually, our peppers have popped up, not all of them. The cayenne peppers actually did not come up, only two, and they're kind of weak. But a lot of the peppers did come up. The tomatoes have all germinated. The eggplant are a little on the slower end, but it's fine. Only got one plant, but that might be enough. I don't know. So I love a lot of those plants need to be up potted. What I'm actually doing though is I'm going to put some plastic over the raised garden bed that I grow the salad greens in and actually move them outside because we are having some warmer temperatures next week or this week, so they'll get a chance to kind of acclimate and harden off. But also if the temperatures dip down to like the 30s at night, I can actually just close the plastic up. And inside the plastic, it'll keep it at a nice even 60 degrees. And then I'll just open it up in the mornings. But I've done that for the last few years. Even if we were to get a blizzard, the temperatures are relatively consistent in that raised area. They won't be harmed. If anything, they'll improve. They'll be decent. They won't grow so much in a blizzard, but like usually if I put them outside earlier, they actually are huge by the time the actual spring hits, because this isn't spring. But they're actually huge by the time the actual spring hits, and like we'll actually be pulling salad greens by mid-April, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm moving them out. Probably not today, but I will be moving them out next week. But I'll prep the garden area to make sure that I have a space for them. There's a few things to do, so I'm going to show you guys what the seedlings look like. All right, so here are the seedlings early May, and they are doing wonderful. I actually potted half into some Soho cups I had from last year because my other cups hadn't come in yet. I actually had to order some more of these smaller ones to up pot the tomatoes and the flowers, which are coming in now. And then some of these salad greens will be moving outside next week once I set up the raised bed. We'll put the plastic over it anyway. And I did remove the 2 heating pads that were here, and there's one more heating pad here, but it's actually no longer needed. I was just in high hopes that we would get some more eggplant, but I think that might be the lone one. And if I wanted to survive, I do need to up pot it quickly. But all of these are different varieties of marigolds here. And then we have some calendula that's come up, and the marigolds did not come up, and I'm wondering if maybe they were old seed. So I brought some more marigold seeds, but in future reference, I will never buy marigold seeds again. I will always just save the seed heads. It just seems like I have more germination and quicker germination if I'm saving the seed myself. And these calendula I actually did save from seed. And then here we have our San Marzano and Amish paste tomatoes, which came up pretty well with the exception of maybe one here. And then I did up pot the sun sugar cherry tomatoes here, and they actually came up about maybe a couple of days ago, so still relatively young. These are all of our lettuces that are going out with the exception of the white sage in the back. And then we do have some very stunted purple kale here, which I think, as mentioned, will actually increase in size when I increase the temperature in this area. Then we have all of our basil here, which have actually been watered with the fertilizer, and they're starting to peak up in color a lot and grow. We have some more kale here, and then our Molo lettuce here. A little bit of catnip, a little bit of valerian. And then over here we have all of our peppers. So there's a few that just came up. The cayenne peppers were struggling. We have some more chamomile. And then primarily what's come up, and I guess primarily what I'll have in the garden this year, will be Korean dark pepper, but they do actually turn red as well. But the Korean dark peppers is a hot pepper, and then we also have some poblano hot peppers as well. And that's fine. I just really wanted some peppers that I can, dehydrate and make into the fire tonics and use in soups. And they are just starting to get their second set of leaves. This one is actually a work in progress. It actually came up crooked. The seed cap was stuck on here, and I think that we was having some temperature variations, and it just came out kind of twisted. So I have the toothpicks here trying to straighten it out a little bit. But it's my little hope pepper. And then we have all of our tomatoes, a lot of Dr. Witchies, and a lot of Cherokee purples, and I'm not going to be able to plant all of these. Some are actually sprouting the second seeds in there, so they'll have to be separated or cut. I don't need that many tomatoes. But they're actually starting, some of them are starting to get their second leaves, so that's encouraging. And even though there's light, it is bending towards the window to get some of the natural sunlight. But it's fine. Once I clear out some space, I'll just kind of move these up and they'll get the natural sun. And they'll also get the grow lights. And I actually took about maybe a few inches off of the side panels so that I can bring these down lower. So they don't have to reach out so much. The basil was actually, this is cinnamon basil, which kind of grows long anyway. But they're stretching out to reach towards the sunlight. And then noticing my salad greens here, Paris Island lettuce here, Genevieve basil here, which actually have some good length on them. And they're doing really wonderful after the fertilizing. Lettuce leaf basil coming around slowly but surely in the back. Look how big these leaves are though. And then we have our purple bok choy, which is doing some weirdness. It has some leaf curl. I don't know if that's just, I don't really know if that is something to do with the weather. I don't know. These have been weird. It might literally be the inconsistency in the temperature, and that's why I actually want to get this under control. It can drop down to 60 in here and then raise back up to 75, and I don't think that can be good for any plant. We do have our arugula here. And then we have our sweet marjoram, which, you know, kind of looks the way it looks right now. But they've been watered. I kind of think I might need to lay off the watering a little bit and just let these root out. But they actually look pretty well. And then we have the same type of leaf curl on the sage too. But I do see that I pinched the top, so it might be a little stressed, but I do see some little leaf nodes there. Our red bergamot is doing wonderful. Slow growing, but doing okay. And then we have our tulsi, our lavender. I pinched the top of this as well, hoping just for it to thicken out. Have a few chamomile, and then we have one of our chamomiles is actually trying to grow a flower. Now I know I need to pinch that off, but I want just one flower just to be able to smell the spring. And then after that I'm going to pinch off all the flower heads. That helps to put more attention towards the roots. And then we have our beautiful tulsi here, which also has that same type of leaf curl. Not exactly sure if it's just a, you know, a condition of just like the inconsistent temperatures, or if it's a watering thing, too much water. I don't know. It is a lot of water though. They might be oversaturated, so I might let them dry out for a minute and see if that helps. But this is a seedling so far. I am thoroughly excited about the tomatoes and the peppers that we do have. And our one little eggplant. And as soon as some of these plants move outside, then we'll have some more space. This it's just this time it's been kind of weird because I am in my 5th year gardening, but there's still a lot of learning to be done even in the 5th year. Like I said, the peppers were kind of weird. I tried the Ziploc bag paper towel method and that bombed. And I think the reason why that might have bombed actually is because of me sitting those seeds on a heating mat. I think that the plastic actually traps in a lot of humidity and a lot of heat. Adding a heating mat to that, only thing it did was cook the seeds and they disintegrated when I put them in soil. So that wasn't a great thing to do. Another thing was I was actually planting the seeds too deep. And so I have a chopstick and I just kind of press it all the way deep down into the germinating stations. But if you have a heating mat and the soil was kind of saturated, the only thing the seeds would do is sit in that water, combine with the heat and they'll disintegrate and like nothing will come up. So I have to be more careful with how deep I'm like planting these seeds. If you plant them too close to the surface, they will germinate, but they'll germinate with the seed caps on, and then like they'll die because the leaves get trapped within the seed cap. And that happened with a few of my tomatoes. So like if you plant them too deep, they won't germinate at all, they'll die. So there's a fine balance between how deep you should bury your plants, and it's on the seed pack. I know someone's gonna say that, but I've done it. Okay, just kind of going with the flow for gardening. And now I'm paying more attention to seed depth because I'm trying to like not kill every seed I have. Seed depth is important. Follow that. Another thing is overwatering too. So I usually bottom water everything, but the soil can be too saturated, and that will kill a lot of your plant roots. That will disintegrate your seeds, even if they are planted at a relatively decent level. So try your best not to overwater. Sorry for the dogs in the background, but I'm surrounded by dogs and all they do is bark. And I'm only going to use rainwater for the plants. There are a few things. I have a list. There's a list here. I'm going to laminate this list and hang it on the wall. I don't necessarily do seed journaling things well because I feel like if it's a hard rule, it's a rule going forward and I don't have to write it every year. My videos are my garden journals, but there are some things that do need to be laminated and placed in a location where you can see it. So rule number 4, or rule number 7 actually, is fall seed starting preparations. And one of those is the collection of rainwater, because I don't really want to use tap water in the spring. And in the spring you have snow and ice, so you can't be collecting rainwater. It will freeze and explode your barrels. So if I collect it in the fall, when I'm tapering off on like watering the plants, I can sit it in the garage and it won't freeze, and then I can have it available in the spring. Another thing I'm going to do is start making my seed starting mix. I mean, it's relatively cheap in the grocery store or Menards or any big box store. You can get the coconut coir mixed with some perlite or some vermiculite. You can get that for about $5 a bag. But if I purchased by bag, I would have to purchase closer to like what I'm on bag. I purchased 6 bags and I still had other stuff to plant out. It's more money than I want to spend year 5 of gardening on just seed preparation stuff. Whereas if I go to like my local nursery, they have a huge 1-quart bag or a huge bag of like potting mix with very little mulch in it for $5. Buy a bag of vermiculite, buy a bag of compost, and some coconut coir. Mix that all together and I have enough potting mix and seed starting mix to last me the entire season, including starting my fall plants. And I just store them in 5-gallon buckets with a lid on and sit it nicely neat in the garage. So those will be things that I actually do in the fall, is buying my seed starting mix or my potting soil, but buying that in the fall and storing it, because it will save you money. In the long run, it'll save you money. The next thing I want to do in the fall is actually to wash out all of my seed starting things, like my watering basins, my planters. Wash all of that stuff out if you need to, or just kind of store it in the garage in a cool, dry place where it'll like everything will dry up, and then all you have to do is kind of bang them out a little bit, and they're clean. Because I had to clean them out early spring, and it was like freezing outside, and like it wasn't bueno. It wasn't great. So like doing all of that in the fall will allow for me to be better prepared for the spring gardening season, because it's starting in February, so there isn't a lot of time, you know. So there are a few things that I have learned on top of, and I didn't mention it, but I was noticing that my seeds, I was looking at older videos, older gardening photos, and noticing that my seeds, the seedlings I started in February, they haven't grown a lot. And that's despite the fact that I'm fertilizing it now and the fertilizer's working. It's taking the yellowing out of the plants. And I made my own fertilizer. That's another thing. Prepare my fertilizers in the fall as well, instead of kind of spreading the funk around the neighborhood in March. It wasn't pleasant trying to filter all of that stuff out either. And I'll make a video on how I make my fertilizer, but it sits literally for about 6 months out of the year. And I literally make it with kitchen scraps and comfrey leaves. And you can make yours too. And that's all I'm fertilizing my plants with. And I'll show you the combination of it. But yeah, like I was noticing that despite the fertilizer, despite the fact that I'm watering with rainwater, and you should notice a complete difference if you're watering with rainwater. They would grow with that more so than tap water. My containers were cleaned out. One thing that I could not change is that my office where I'm growing my plants, it stays relatively between 60 and 70 degrees. At night it drops down to 60. In the daytime, even in temperatures like this, it gets as high as 70. And with the heat on, it can get a little higher, but it doesn't really touch 80 degrees. And even though the room is actually relatively warm, typically, the plants will live in 70 degrees, but they won't grow. You'll start to see some stunting, especially if the temperature is between 60 and 70. And so I have to correct that, because when I had the grow tent, the temperatures were like 90 to 100 sometimes, and the plants just exploded in there. So I'm thinking it's a temperature difference. I went to Menards and got some plastic. The same plastic I will be wrapping the raised bed in. I'm going to try to wrap my growing station in and just provide myself a door and some windows on the side. And put a thermometer in there and see if that makes a difference. If I can get the temperatures to at least be 75, 80, I think I'll see a significant difference in the growing of my kale and some of the peppers, which, I mean, the kale likes colder temperatures, but it does not mean they grow in it. They fare better as seedlings if you can get the temperature as warm as possible. They'll bloom, and then at that point you can move them outside and they'll grow at their own pace. So I need to get the temperature up, so I'm going to wrap everything in plastic and I'll show you guys that process. But there was some things I learned this germinating season, and even though I'm in year 5, it does not mean that there isn't still things to learn. So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge watching all of you beautiful people show videos and photos of your beautiful, healthy, beautifully large peppers. And I know I started mine in February and they are microscopic because essentially I started them in March because nothing bloomed really in February because of my experiments. And it's fine. You should continuously experiment. But if it's a failure, write it down so you don't continue the failure next year. So I have a few things that I'm learning, and it's okay. It's fine. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your gardens are doing wonderful. I hope that you are learning many things. I hope that your failures are turning into wonderful successes and that you do still, like me, germinate a whole lot of plants so no one's going to notice when half of them die. That's kind of my method, germinate a lot. And then when half of them die, you still have more than enough to plant. So I hope that has been your thing as well. And I hope that you're just enjoying the beauty of this weather. I'm not quite sure where you guys are, but we are having a wonderful fall spring because it is early March. It should not be this warm. And I'm trying to keep my mind contained to not like expect the worst of spring because we are having this beautiful weather in March, but I digress. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.